Hey, welcome back everybody. Jeff Frick here, coming to you from the eGen Lounge. We're at the House of Blues in Mandalay Bay at Google Cloud Next, and it's all about agentic AI. We're not even talking about Gen AI anymore. It's just agentic AI, and how are you going to use these tools to accelerate your business, find efficiencies, and really be able to move forward in what's an increasingly competitive world. And we're excited to have our next guest who's on the front lines with customers just about every single day. It's Samuel Gallagher, the Global AI and Machine Learning Practice Lead for eGen. Samuel, how you doing?
I'm doing great, thanks for having me.
So I bet you've had some interesting hallway conversations over the last couple of days.
AI is top of mind for everyone that's here, that's for sure.
So what are you hearing in terms of kind of the whispers and some of the concerns, or what are really people talking about?
You know, people are done playing around with AI and agents and they want to productionize it, right? We have a slew of problems and use cases we want AI to solve. We've been building prototypes and doing research. The question is now, how do we run it in production? How do we monitor and observe and evaluate all these agents? And Google's keynote yesterday brought a whole bunch of new tools that we can now use to do that with.
So what do you think about those tools? I mean, it's an amazing capability set within Gemini that you guys now have to bring to bear with your clients. So what gets you excited about what you had before and then what you saw at the keynote yesterday?
Yeah, I mean, it's great having these tools now provided from Google. In the past, we've had to build them ourselves, right? Because we know we've been in production, we've had the battle scars of deploying agents to production many times. We know observability and especially evaluations are very important. And now with managed tooling, we don't need to build that from scratch every time. It's excellent.
Talk a little bit about the role of architecture and how important architecture is. We've also talked about data, and I sure hope in the big data craze 10 years ago, people got their data relatively cleaned up, but architecture is important as well. Those things are still fundamental. How are you seeing those evolve? How prepared are people really to take the next step with these other tools? Do they have the infrastructure ready to go?
Yeah, I think, you know, having strong opinions and defaults for what has worked in the past is a really good play for agentic workloads and architecture. The problems we come across is when we need to redefine the components every time we land on a new engagement. And something our team is doing really well is having strong opinions for what our default stances are for the different components across the stack. So we can have a really clear vision around what we need to build and then hyper-focus on the value the agents really bring to the organization.
And typically, how far are they? Is it a big gap that you've got to fill to make them ready to go, or is it kind of tidying up around the edges, or is it really kind of use case specific? But I would imagine I wouldn't pick a use case unless I felt I was pretty good, pretty close to be able to put it in play.
You know, as a consultant, the best answer I have is it depends, of course.
Of course.
Right? A lot of times for larger enterprise customers, they have a really strong, mature architecture we can use as a leapfrog to start deploying agents and add the extra features we need around the sides. And then other times for customers that are a little less cloud savvy perhaps, or have really unique requirements on the cloud and with agents, we have to build the architecture from scratch and bespoke. Both patterns work. It really depends on where people are in their overall cloud maturity journey.
So I know part of the big eGen messaging is you guys are trying to be AI-centric internally. So I'm wondering if you could share some of the ways that you guys are using and have adjusted the way that your internal development and deployment and go-to-market teams have changed using some of these tools inside.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I think using AI as an engineer is a transformative journey. It's not just a new tool you can use and adopt and be like, yeah, you know, it works okay for me. It fundamentally shifts the workflow that you have day to day. Internally, we've had a lot of talks and projects and accelerators that we do to train our own resources and how to use these tools effectively. And from there, we can use that expertise back on our client side and accelerate their own development teams in flight as we're delivering on the projects we have.
That's awesome. How are you helping customers deal with the kind of the probability-based output of these tools versus the deterministic output of a calculator when you hit the square root of 4 and it's always the same answer?
To quote a good friend of mine, he likes to say, AI isn't magic, it's science, right? And when you're probability-based, you have to do strong statistical evaluation. You have to have a measurable outcome and a clean golden data set that you can evaluate your model's performance against and get quantitative results for. That way you can confidently know if your agent is working the way you would expect in a production environment.
Right. I think I talked to Justin earlier, and he was saying, it's not magic, it's machine learning. So, and you're ahead of machine learning. So if you use the same disciplines that you've used in the past, those will serve you well in this round as well.
That's absolutely the case. Yes.
Yeah. And the other thing that he said that was interesting is you're not competing against perfection.
Right.
You're competing against your current state. And I think a lot of people really miss that. Like, what are you comparing to? Where you want to be or where you are now? And is there some improvement to be gained?
Absolutely. And with clients, I think a lot about the risk profile of the actions that the agent needs to take, right? If it's a pretty low-level, benign task the agent needs to do, good enough can be okay, right? But when we're mission critical, when we're in the finance space, critical path for a business, you need to make sure you have strong evaluations and a good confidence in the outcomes.
Right. Security and governance. Nobody likes to talk about it. Everybody wants to make sure that they're covered.
Yeah.
Has this changed anything, or is it just another layer of baking in to make sure that you've got it covered, or is there new attack surfaces opened up? Kind of what's the governance and security posture?
Yeah, excellent question. Definitely new attack vectors with agents. There's a quote I like, having an agent in your cloud is like having an intern with root access to your environments, right? And when you think about deploying agents, you have to deeply consider the identity that they're running with, the tools and data access that it can use, and really lock it down like you would any other workload and have a strong audit trail so you can go back and see everything it's done over its lifetime. So there's some really good tools out that you can do. We have governance frameworks that we use to evaluate the risk profile. It's really cornerstone, and I bring it up in the first conversation because it's the first thing that needs to be addressed.
Right. So a lot of talk here about agentic and then even kind of multi-agent workflows that are going to go from agent to agent. We talked a little bit before we turned the cameras on about MCP servers and some of these new technologies that are enabling people to do things without necessarily getting all of their infrastructure totally up to speed. Wonder if you can share what some of these new tools open up to do smaller projects to get started and not necessarily have to rip and replace everything and have a big nasty data integration project.
Yes. No, MCP is wonderful. It gives standardized access controls and tool use to an agent to systems you already own. So instead of having to build a bunch of tooling from scratch, you can enable MCP servers and pluggable like a USB cable would be, and your agent can immediately have access to the data and the tools and everything else it needs to be successful. And then speaking of multi-agent, you have the agent-to-agent protocol, A to A, that allows a standard communication path from one agent to another and the full ecosystem that supports it. So we're really in the age of defining new standards and figuring out how all of these tools are going to work together across the ecosystem.
So is there a lot of shadow AI out there that you guys run into, or like the old days of the shadow IT?
You have a lot of passionate and curious engineers out in the world. They want to play with AI and they want to build more efficiencies for themselves and their team. And if you don't have a robust governance layer baked in for where they build these agents, you do end up with quite a few shadow agents. I've seen some interesting things, that's for sure.
Well, the other term I heard the other day was gray code.
Gray code.
Yeah, nobody knows exactly what's in there because nobody wrote.
Nobody wrote it, nobody looked at it, and it just happens to work sometimes.
Yeah, how about that? So when you go into these engagements, what are some of the biggest still AI myths that you still have to overcome? Maybe senior managers that aren't quite up to speed or technically savvy or scared or they saw some headline in the news. What do you kind of run into?
Yeah, I think an interesting myth is the myth that having more agents equals more capabilities, right? And really what that comes with is additional orchestration and governance tax on top of those agents. A lot of the value that I've seen from agentic development are the teams building smaller, simple agents targeting a specific workflow to unlock value for the business. It's not a direct one-to-one comparison.
Right. But keep it focused, right? Keep it small.
Keep it focused, understand the job design, and lean in deep to the domain and the problem you're trying to solve.
Right. Well, Samuel, thanks for sharing your insight. I'm sure you've been hopping here for the last couple of days. I won't ask you your step count, but I'm sure it's not small.
It's not small, that's for sure. Thank you so much, Jeff.
All right, thank you. He's Samuel, I'm Jeff. We're here at the Egen Lounge at Google Cloud Next at the House of Blues. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.